Are you ready to hoist the colors? Now, time for the most in-depth look at the world of ECU athletics. Welcome in to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game. Watch the show live on Facebook and at 943thegame.com. Now, here's your host, Stephen Igo.
Welcome into the Tuesday edition of Hoist the Colors. I'm Philip Pilkington, once again filling in for Stephen Igo. Igo's still feeling a little under the weather. We are expected to have him back tomorrow. You'll probably have to do it from the house because we don't want that junk here, but we are expected to have him hosting the show. I am joined on this Tuesday afternoon by Scott Rogers, the voice of Pirate Baseball. Good afternoon, Scott. How's it going?
I am doing well, Philip, and after Baseball Media Day yesterday, fired up for baseball season.
It is almost here. We are just 24 days away from Pirate Baseball as they will be hosting the Bronx of Ryder. As the show goes on, we are going to talk about those Bronx as well as do a preview of the American Athletic Conference. Also hit on a few other Pirate opponents coming up here in the 2024 season. But we're going to start the show by talking about East Carolina. We're going to recap a little bit of Media Day and hear from Coach Godwin. We're going to hear from Danny Beal as well as the pitching coach, Austin Knight. So, Scooter, I guess we'll get right into our first cut here where Coach Godwin talked about this being the most player-led team he has had in his 10 years here in East Carolina.
I would say this group has a chance to be the best leadership group that we've ever had here in the 10 years that I've been the coach here. And it's been just awesome to watch those guys continue to grow and develop and the closeness of this group. And you'll hear from the players, but they all told me at the end of the fall it's the closest group that we've ever had here. And, you know, you got J-Dub, who's a fifth-year guy, so half a decade he's been here. So I think he's got a pretty good idea of what has happened in the past. But Carter Cunningham has been unbelievable. Treya Savage, all those junior pitchers, Jake Hunter, Shinkman. I'm thinking JC has done a really good job as well. And there's others. There's about 14 guys in our leadership group, and we try to communicate on a regular basis, even if we're not meeting once a week, and bouncing ideas off each other. But the thing I would tell you is it's the most player-led group that we've ever had.
Yeah, you know, I think that's saying a lot for this team. So, Scott, I'm going to ask you this because obviously you're not at practice every day, but you do travel with the team, and you have been with the team the last couple of years. I've always felt that this has always been a pretty player-led team. He talked about it at after the 2022 season, when they brought Zach Agnos and Jake Kuchmaner in after they lost the Super Regional to Texas, and he said that had probably been the most player-led team he had. So I feel like this team's always been player-led, so this coming from Coach is even more so than it would be maybe with some other teams who are not historically player-led.
Yeah, and, you know, it's like you said, to say this is the most player-led group, and you compared it to that 2022 team where you had Bryson Worrell, you had Zach Agnos, you had a lot of older players on that team, but this year certainly has that same feel to it with more players. And he mentioned Carter Cunningham. You have, and I think he's one of the biggest leaders on this team right now. You know, you look at or you listen to him just last weekend here on Hoist the Colors, and the way that he does himself is amazing to me off the field. And that's something that this program you can't teach. You can teach that, but if they don't accept it, that's on them. And everybody has accepted that, I think, and realized, hey, when you get to be at the level that these players are right now, you have to be a leader, and that says a lot about these guys right now.
It does, and we hope that this team is able to build off that. And, one of the things, anytime you hear a player-led group, that starts from the top, right? It starts from the coach's mentality and what he puts into the organization, and then that trickles down to, obviously, you got to recruit great young men that were raised right, and, so it speaks a lot about them as well. But it always starts from the top. So a lot of shout-out to Coach Godwin, Coach Palumbo, and that whole staff, as they have been here for 10 years now. Scooter, can you believe that Coach Godwin has been here for 10 years?
It's amazing that he has been here for that long now, and the fact, too, that he's been able to keep Jeff Palumbo here that long with him is unbelievable. And Coach Palumbo's talked about in the past how he's had the opportunity to go some other places and be a head coach, but he's elected to stay here at East Carolina. That says a lot about this program. It says a lot about Cliff Godwin as well for his loyalty to him. But, I mean, it shows where this program is right now and how – and I talked to you about this the other day. We were riding in the car somewhere, I think it was, and – we were talking about Jason Dietrich being the head coach at Cal State Fullerton and how when you're a program like East Carolina and you're at the level now that people are hiring coaches away from you to be head coaches and to be assistant coaches other places, that shows how well this program is.
No, it 100% does. I agree with you. And another guy that is a former recruit of Coach Godwin is Henry Lartigue. He recruited him at Ole Miss when Coach Godwin was one of the assistants there, and he is now the new hitting coach and part of Coach Godwin's staff. And Coach talked about hiring Henry Lartigue yesterday.
When you look at the people I hire, it's relationship based, and he's young. I recruited him to Ole Miss. He was a switch hitting catcher. It's amazing that he still wanted to work for me after I coached him his freshman year. That was in 2014 when we went to Omaha. He actually didn't even travel to the College World Series because he didn't make the travel roster. But 2 years later, he was a 7th-round draft pick, I think by the Phillies, and made it all the way up to AAA and had an injury, or he probably would have played in the big leagues. But you got a switch hitter, you got a catcher. He was a student assistant in 2021 when Ole Miss won the national championship, or 22. And then last year he was at Arkansas State, grinding as a volunteer assistant, and when the opportunity presented itself, it was a no-brainer for me because I know that he is an unbelievable human being, super knowledgeable about hitting and super knowledgeable about catching.
And Scooter, I haven't had the chance to meet Coach Lartigue yet, but you have got the opportunity to sit down and speak with him. So what were kind of your thoughts on first meeting Henry Lartigue?
I think super guy. He for a younger coach, he is very knowledgeable, and met with him the other day for the first time and kind of ran through, everybody on the team to see where he thought everybody was right now, and he has definitely adjusted very well to East Carolina. I think this is going to be a super hire. For someone that played for Cliff Godwin at Ole Miss, this is a guy too that knows how Cliff Godwin is going to want to run this program. A guy that is used to winning, coming from a program like Ole Miss. He's coached in the past when he was at Arkansas State, I believe it was, where he came from. And so I like to hire. It gives you some new life as well with a younger guy to relate to the players maybe a little bit more as well. But I like it. And talking with him for the first time, this is going to be a great addition to East Carolina staff.
To your point of playing under Coach Godwin, now the culture of East Carolina and the culture that Coach Godwin puts out is a lot different than a lot of other places in a good way. And there are a lot of guys who come into this program as players, and I'm starting on players, but I'm going to implement Coach Lartigue in this, and they don't fit. And I don't think that it's because they're bad people. I don't think it's not because they're not hard workers, but there is a certain expectation, and Coach talks about it yesterday, in the classroom, work ethic, on the field, and just a certain attitude you have to play for Coach Godwin. And if you are going to coach under Coach Godwin, you have to have the same mindset he does to hold the players to that standard. And if he brings in a coach that is not willing to hold players to that standard, there are going to be issues. And that, I think, is why he talks about relationship-based hires. Coach Lartigue, to Scooter's point, has played under Coach Godwin. Yes, it wasn't as a head coach, but he knows that mindset. And I'm sure because of that relationship, Coach Lartigue is already informed of the way things are done at East Carolina in that clubhouse. He knows who Coach Godwin is as a man. He knows who he is as a coach. And I think Coach Lartigue will be able to slide right in and fit right in to this culture immediately. And that is so important. Look, there are talent-wise 18, 20 teams probably in the country capable of going on a run and winning a national championship in college baseball. But there are only 6 or 8 teams that have the talent, have the work ethic, and have the culture where they all fit together. And that is one thing about Coach Godwin's team. It is a special culture here, and they are all bought in. And to bring in a guy who already is aware of what that culture is going to be, I think is a huge, huge hire for Coach Godwin. So moving on now from bringing in Coach Lartigue, we're going to talk about another assistant coach, Coach Knight. AK has obviously been with the program for a handful of years now, and he talked about getting a Sunday and a midweek starters. We already know that it will most likely be Trey Savage on Friday. It will most likely be Zach Root on Saturday. Scooter and I kind of hit on the guys that it could potentially be for Sunday yesterday, but here's what Coach Knight had to say about finding those other 2 starters in this rotation.
We kind of will assess as we get through the weekend and see where we're at from how guys are feeling, and we'll assess who the best matchup is against the team that's ahead of us, and whoever that is, we'll get the ball and we'll roll with him from there, right? But of course, I don't think you can ever just say, hey, this is going to be your midweek starter.
Yeah, Scooter, I guess nowadays it's so weird because the midweek game, it almost seems like sometimes it's an opener in Tampa Bay Rays terms. And, usually even if it's not a true opener, you don't have a guy go out there and throw 6 or 7 innings because of the way the college baseball schedule is made. Now, the unfortunate thing when you're East Carolina, the RPI ratings don't take into account whether it's a midweek game or a weekend game. And some of our biggest RPI boosters, Duke, Campbell, State, are midweek games. And now, obviously, you don't want to sell out to win the midweek and it costs you 3 games over the weekend. You got to be smart. But I think that's what's so tough, and we're going to get into how the conference probably has gotten a little better this year with some of the new additions. But when you're in a conference where you really have to front-load your schedule with tough teams, I think it becomes a little tough sometimes to figure out how to handle that midweek game, whereas a lot of, the SEC schools are playing cupcake Tuesday afternoon games.
Yeah, and, that's one thing, and AK mentioned it yesterday how, every team would love to have 5 or 6 starters, right? So you would have that definitive guy every single day that you have a game, but you're not going to have – everybody would love that, but you don't have that right now. That's why you throw that best available guy on those midweek starts. And, everybody pieces it together midweek-wise. We see that in our midweek games with opponents as well. But from a standpoint, I think this is one of the deeper staffs East Carolina could have from a starting perspective. And, you talk about the guys that are kind of in contention for that Sunday spot right now. You have Chris Kaler, you have Jake Hunter. They've mentioned Wyatt Lunsford-Chink, and Ellen Groller is another one that could slide into that spot. Not even mentioning Ethan Norby, the freshman left-hander who had an outstanding fall. And so I think you could see some of those guys. If they're not used a ton on the weekend, that's someone that could come in and start on a midweek game and get you 2, 3, 4 innings in a midweek start. And so I think this team has plenty of options to go to midweek wise, but it's like AK said, you're gonna use what you have on the weekend, and then whatever you have best available, you go with in those midweek starts.
Obviously, you've got to play the game to win the game. We know that. But am I crazy to think this, Scooter, that in an ideal world, now obviously I'm building off your point, not disagreeing with your point. I would prefer to ideally maybe see a younger guy in that situation, even if you're only getting 4 out of him. That way he can slide into a weekend role because Trey Savage and Zach Root are not going to be here forever. I think in a perfect world, that Tuesday starter is not Wyatt Lunsford-Chinkman or Jake Hunter. We know they can start. They're potentially the Sunday guy. It would be really, really ideal, I feel like, to get a young guy in there, even if he throws 3 or 4 innings, because you cannot simulate starter experience. And you don't want to just throw a guy out there, and we've seen it multiple times with this team and with other teams in college baseball. You got a really good pitcher, and you think, hey, man, he's going to be a starter. You throw him out there, and for the first 2 weeks he gets shelled, and he's right back in the bullpen because he was the Saturday starter out of nowhere.
Yeah, and, that's one thing where you look at last year where it was kind of mixed match earlier in the year, and then as it went along, Garrett Saylor kind of appeared as that guy for the midweek starts. And so I think that's another thing you could see from this year, where your first couple of weeks you throw some different guys in there starting-wise, and then, hey, well, this guy's kind of emerging as our guy for the week. And you could have that in some of these weeks where you got 2 midweeks, you play it by ear, you see what you got, you throw your best available, whatever. But where you have only one game of those midweeks, hopefully by, mid-part of the year, you know that this is going to be your midweek starter. And I think that's a possibility, too, with this team, where one of those guys emerges kind of as your midweek guy.
Yeah, and kind of looking at the schedule here, I believe there is only 1 week in which the Pirates play a pair of midweek games. You have March 5th and 6th. They're at home against Virginia Commonwealth, which is a little strange. Scooter, normally we take, I don't know when spring break falls now that I'm out of school. Couldn't really care less, honestly, because it doesn't affect me. But, used to we'd take that Tuesday, Wednesday spring break trip. We went down and played Queens last year on Tuesday and then Elon on Wednesday. So it's kind of weird not to have that midweek Tuesday, Wednesday on the road as part of a 2-game trip.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just has to do with scheduling, too, and what's available out there. But I think you got your schedule right in front of you. I believe there's 1 week where UNCW and William and Mary are back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. Or I could be thinking about last year's schedule, actually. I think there's
Here
one
you
more.
go. You're right. April 16th, we're at William and Mary. April 17th, which is a Wednesday, we're home against Old Dominion.
Yeah, and so you don't have a ton of those double midweek games like that, and so that's what I meant by, when you have the majority only 1 midweek game, that guy could emerge, once you get past the first couple of weeks of the year.
Yeah, no, of course. We'll see how that all goes. And while I know it's kind of a long first segment, but because we're starting on the Pirates, there's nothing wrong with going along. There was another interesting thing said yesterday, or optimistic thing said yesterday by Danny Beal, and he talked about his goal. He was asked about his personal goals, and he kind of ignored the question and started talking about the team goals.
I don't really think too much into the personal accolades. I think I just know where I want us to go and where our older guys want us to go as a team. And obviously it's Omaha and win a national championship.
All right,
Fire me up, Philip Pilkington. Fire me up.
He lit a fire under your butt because he has fired you up. You were sitting there yesterday pumped up when he said it. You came in today excited to play the cut. I saved the best for last just for you, Scooter.
I mean, when he said that yesterday, it took all I could not to fist bump in my chair. And then once I went back and listened to it, I was like, this is where this program is right now, because these players expect they are right there. They expect to be in contention to go to Omaha every year, and they expect to be in contention to win a national title.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with that culture. I do believe this team has the culture to do it. They definitely have the talent to do it. It's just a matter of, bounces going their way, as we know how unlucky and lucky you can be in college baseball. So that'll wrap it up for our first segment here on Hoist the Colors. On the other side, we are going to kind of preview the Pirates' schedule and some of their opponents coming up here in the 2024 campaign. This is Hoist the Colors on a Monday.
It's Greenville Toyota's Winter Wrap-Up Event. Wrap up a great deal on over 100 pre-owned vehicles, starting under $15,000. We have all makes and models, including luxury. Plus, wrap up a huge warranty and no-charge maintenance. Hurry into Greenville Toyota.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked to order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you farm to fork beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to fork beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Hey, grab me one too.
When a place is as special as this, you don't want to change a thing. You simply want to enjoy it, just as it is. That was our inspiration behind Bow Coast West, our newest community in Beaufort, North Carolina. Embrace all that we love about this very special place and make it easy for families to enjoy all that this coastal lifestyle has to offer. Be inspired. Bow Coast West.
It's Greenville Toyota's winter wrap-up event. We're wrapping up the year with our biggest savings. Shop new Camrys and RAV4s, $289 a month. Need credit? Get pre-qualified today. Wrap up a great deal with payments from $289 at Greenville Toyota.
What's happening?
Tell me what's happening. Every ECU fan's one stop for all things ECU athletics. This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Back into our Tuesday program of Hoist the Colors. If you're just joining us, Stephen is still out feeling a little under the weather. He is expected to be back tomorrow. In the first segment, we talked about ECU Baseball Media Day. We are going to move on from the Pirates to the Pirates' opponents, specifically the conference opponents, as 5 new teams on the baseball side have been moved into the conference this year. Those being UTSA, UAB, Florida Atlantic, a familiar foe in Charlotte, and one of the most historic baseball programs of all time in Rice. North Texas also joined the conference, but for some reason, a school in Dallas with 40,000 students does not have a baseball team. Don't ask me why. And Scooter, we are going to go ahead and get right into it. We'll just kind of go in chronological order of how we will play these teams. So the Pirates will open up conference play on Friday, March 22nd in San Antonio, Texas against the Roadrunners, which I think is pretty is the probably the best team coming in out of these 5, at least if you look at last year.
Yeah, record-wise, they are the best team coming in. I think them and Charlotte are very, very similar teams. Those are really the top 2 teams coming in from Conference USA last year. The UTSA went 38-14 overall. They won 21 conference games last year, which I think is very impressive, especially with some of the teams that are playing in Conference USA. And you got to think now with Dallas Baptist in that league, that's very impressive. And the biggest thing from these teams that I think is going to help East Carolina so much is the RPI. UTSA comes in had a RPI of 75 last year. Charlotte 65 last year, and so you get a boost. And not only will that help East Carolina, but that's going to help the American so much because that will help everybody in the conference from an RPI perspective. And so there's a lot of positives coming into this league this year with these new additions.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than showing up for a conference game, clicking on Warren Nolan, and seeing that you are losing RPI points for winning the game. It's like we would be better off lying and saying the whole team had COVID and not showing up for the game than we are to show up and win. That's obviously part of is how crappy the system is with RPI, but it also has to do with how crappy the American is. So, kind of is what it is there. So, as we mentioned, starting at San Antonio, this third weekend of March, and then the conference opener, make note of this, is on Thursday, March 28th. This is a Thursday through Saturday series against UAB, the 31st of March being Easter Sunday. So the American sticking to what they normally do, playing that series a Thursday through Saturday as we welcome the UAB Blazers, which is by far the worst team of the five coming in, with a team last year that just won 8 conference games all season.
Yeah, and UAB has been a program in the past where they've been decent. And, all of these teams, you never really know what to fully expect until after the first week or two, because with the portal and people leaving who they're bringing in, you just don't know. But looking at these teams on paper, especially last year, UAB was by far the worst, 17-36 overall. They only won 8 conference games, and so that'd be a good opportunity for East Carolina to get a sweep of that weekend. Of course, you want to get a sweep as much as you want. But this is definitely, especially now with an additional team in the American, you have 3 more conference games. And so I think this is another year that East Carolina but could be expected to win 20 conference games again.
I definitely think so. And another one of the teams that is coming in that following weekend, we will travel down to Boca Raton. We know Scooter is happy for that. First weekend in April. It'll still probably be a little bit chilly here in North Carolina, but down in Boca Raton, you're in the Miami metro area. Could be very nice playing the FAU Owls, who finished in the middle of their conference last year. And as you kind of mentioned earlier, finishing middle of the pack in the CUSA is not bad. Dallas Baptist was 25-5 a year ago. It was followed by a very good UTSA team at Charlotte, Western Kentucky, then FAU, who even finished higher than Louisiana Tech, who despite having a slightly down year last year, over the better part of the last decade, has been a contender for an at-large bid many times. They have also won Conference USA a couple times in that span. So to finish higher than Louisiana Tech, I think says something about this team. And to really hang in there, they were only 2 games or a game and a half behind. Wow, that's weird. Charlotte played less conference games than everybody else. Don't know why. Must have had a rain out against UTSA. Those two only logged 29 conference games now as I look at it. But to finish only a game and a half behind a Charlotte team, which, the Pirate fans know is pretty good. East Carolina played them a year ago in Charlotte at a neutral site stadium down there. And then obviously they've been here recently in regionals as well as weekend series.
Yeah, and Florida Atlantic kind of is a interesting program because it's like UCF and South Florida, where it's like, why is this team not winning 40 games a year? I've said that for programs like South Florida. I've said it for UCF. You're in the state of Florida and you're not good consistently. It makes no sense to me. That place obviously has tons of athletes for every sport, but especially baseball. And for you not to have a consistent team, especially now for Florida Atlantic, which that might change now that they're in the American, but you look at those programs, and I've always said to myself, why are they not winning 40 games a year? And so I think FAU is another one, too, that could help. They had an RPI of 79 last year, and so they'll help the conference for sure. But that's obviously a team, too, that could possibly sneak up on you.
They definitely could. And, with them going on the road, if they can just bump that RPI by a couple points or by a couple positions, that would be a quad 1 road series for East Carolina. So definitely a big opportunity there. Next on the conference slate, the 49ers of Charlotte. This is a team who a couple of years ago kind of had a roster overhaul, got a new coach despite being in a pretty good situation, and then they end up coming here in a regional, hanging with the Pirates. They've been to a regional the last handful of years and really a solid program. And the cool thing is that we now have a conference team so close. Unfortunately, this year they come here, so it won't be a quick, easy road trip for Pirate fans for a weekend, but that means we'll get to go to Charlotte next year.
Yep, and Charlotte is a program that has certainly improved under Robert Woodard. He came over from North Carolina, and that's another program that Pirate fans are going to have to watch now in the American. And I personally think that this is going to be your second contender in the American from now on, and it should be. Charlotte's always been a good program, and now that Robert Woodard is there, having some more consistency to that program will definitely help. But this is definitely going to be a program that is going to be competing with East Carolina every year for an American Conference title.
And next on the schedule, we host the Shockers of Wichita State. I think this is the hardest team to predict. They've had a complete roster overhaul. This is a team last year that played very well against the Pirates, but obviously you guys had those horrific travel issues getting to Wichita. It seemed to really mess with the team. And like I said, unfortunately, we can't really say much about their team from last year to this year, as it has been such a roster overhaul with the Shockers.
Yeah, and, just a weird situation that was last year. It's not too often you see a team get rid of their head coach after winning Coach of the Year. It was very odd to see Lord Hibbs get fired last year, and it bit them in the dust a little bit. Pretty much all of Wichita State went in the portal, it seemed like. They did retain a few players here and there, but this is a team that you don't know what to expect because you have so many new players. You have a first-year head coach, and their new coach's name is not coming to my head right now. He was an assistant, I believe it was at Oregon State last year, but you just don't know what to expect because there's going to be so many new players and first-year head coach. But if history repeats itself, Wichita State will be right there in the middle of the pack like they are every single year.
It's interesting that you bring up history repeating itself, and it could lead to Wichita State being good. I think the unfortunate thing, though, is a lot of the kids you're recruiting now don't remember the really good history of Wichita State. Now,
right.
I know you're relating to the recent history, which has been solid, but this was a team that was going to Omaha, 35, 40 years ago.
And it was every year they were going to Omaha.
And unfortunately, you kind of see it with Indiana now in basketball, right? They're not really a blue blood anymore because of lack of recent success, and now they're not landing the big-time recruits. And I feel like Wichita State is in that boat, but all they have to have is that 1 or 2 good years, and then hopefully it will bring out that history. It will bring out the fan base. You kind of mentioned this past year the fan support wasn't great yet. It was cold and rainy, but we've been to plenty of games in Clark LeClaire that's cold and rainy and still have 3,000 people there. So
yeah, and I think the fan support is still there for that program. Going out there for the first time last year, being in that stadium, that's the first college baseball stadium I've ever been in that had a club level for donors. And so they still have that support. Yes, you might have looked out in the crowd last year and saw that there wasn't too many people there, but I'll tell you what, it was freezing cold in Wichita last year. And, of course, everybody was in a bad mood that trip with the travel woes last year. I was about half sick on that trip as well last year. But they still have that fan support. Everybody sees the support that they have in basketball for that program. And so, this is everywhere now. You got to have NIL support, too, for a program like that. And so if they put an emphasis on that for baseball, this is a team that easily could be back, not necessarily where they were, but this is easily a team that could compete for the American Conference title.
Let's hope so, because we need the conference to continue to get better and better to help our case for a host as well as a national seed. We'll kind of go speed it up here as we are running to a time where we do need to get another break here in the next 5 minutes or so. After that, we go to Memphis. This is kind of, I feel like, again, one of those teams where you don't know much about them because there's been a decent overhaul on the roster. And could they be good? Yeah. Could they be the third or fourth best team in the conference? Of course. Could they be down there barely above UAB? Yeah. they could. I think this is a tough one to predict.
This is, and I told you this before we got on the air today, this is kind of my sleeper pick for the American this year. They first-year head coach Kerrick Jackson got hired away last year to Missouri, and so they hired Matt Reiser, who was the head coach at Southeastern Louisiana this year. And so you have first-year head coach. They've put a big emphasis on baseball at Memphis. They totally redid FedEx Park, got a new video board, got a new field, and so they're putting money into this program. And so that's something that they have not done in the past. Is baseball just hasn't been important at Memphis. But now that you're putting an emphasis on it, you've hired a quality coach to replace Kerrick Jackson and Matt Reiser. And so this is the team and they finished the year last year decently. They finished on the upward track last year, and so this is a program I think that easily could sneak up on some people this year, and that's why they're my sleeper pick in the American.
And then with no bid week between these two, we host South Florida.
South Florida. I mean, I told you this before. Like, why are they bad? Why is South Florida bad every single year? The talent on that team is unbelievable, especially from an offensive standpoint. They had Drew Brutcher last year. God, I cannot remember his name. The shortstop Eric Snow was one of the top hitters in the American last year, and they just didn't do anything. Yes, they beat East Carolina in the conference tournament last year, but this is a team that should be winning 35, 40 games every single year, and it's just not happening. There was a lot of speculation that Billy Mole was going to get replaced last year. It did not happen. They kept him, and this might be the make or break year for Billy Mole, and we'll see what happens with South Florida. But it's like I said, you're in Florida, you're in Tampa. Why are you this bad? Why are you this bad? You're telling me that of all those schools in the Tampa area, there's not 9 baseball players that could play in the American Conference, and they can't recruit them? That's interesting to me. But this South Florida team, it's like I just said, they've got the talent. It's just the wins have not come from them whatsoever the past couple of years.
There should be no bad teams in Florida. There should be no bad teams in Texas. Right. Before we get to a final team in Texas, hit on Tulane real quick. Love Corey, but it's probably going to be a bottom of the barrel team.
Yeah, and it was expected. Obviously they won the American last year, the tournament that is. A team that only won 16 games coming in to the tournament last year, and they are kind of going to be in that same position this year. And you might see up above 20 wins from them, but it's still going to be a down year for the Green Wave. Jay Ullman, though, is a great guy. I really think he's going to turn around that Tulane program because he's got the experience of being the head man at some of those private school areas. He knows what to recruit for that school. And another thing that Jay Ullman is trying to do with Tulane is he's a West Coast guy, and so he's trying to implement some of those West Coast game feels to Tulane. And so you could see a bit of an adjustment there with some of their new players, but I really think Jay Ullman's going to turn Tulane around. It's just a matter of when it clicks for them.
And then we finish the season off at home against the team I'm most excited to come to this conference. Maybe they don't make the immediate impact, but I'm hoping the larger TV deals for basketball and football will bring more money to the athletic program and bring back what is historically one of the greatest college baseball programs of all time in Rice.
Yeah, and Rice, as you said, they're one of the greatest programs of all time. Everybody remembers when Wayne Graham was the head coach at Rice, how good they were. They were consistently competing to go to Omaha every single year. Back in our old Conference USA days, when Billy Godwin was here, I remember facing Rice so many times. Of course, that was when I was 8 or 9 years old, but you remembered how good those Rice teams were. And hopefully now being in the American, maybe they can get back to even half of what that program used to be. And that would help not only the Americans so much, but it would be good just to have a program like that back in the American Conference.
Yeah, it would. And it would be great just to see them, even if they weren't in the American. I'd be wanting to see them have a resurgence just because I remember as a kid growing up and always hearing about how great Rice was. They were kind of what is now Gonzaga in college basketball, where despite not being in the biggest conference, Of course, they were in the Southwest Conference back in the olden days with all the other big-time Texas schools and Arkansas randomly. But just big to see them, and it would be great to see them come back. And to your point, I would love to see – we kind of talked about this before the show. Wouldn't it be amazing to see East Carolina and Rice be on a host line every year, and maybe it even come down to who wins the conference to see who gets a national seed, and you've got these two great programs, and then maybe Wichita State and Charlotte are just sitting there at 3rd and 4 ready to be that snake in the grass to jump up and bite one of the big two if they slip up.
Yeah, it would be, and that's what would be so good about this conference now is you have programs like that. You had them before. You had it in Houston and UCF, but for whatever reason, it was not clicking for either of them. And so you still have that opportunity now with Charlotte and like you said, Wichita State, and with how UTSA has kind of been on the rise the past year or so. That's another one that could sneak up and win this conference as well. But back to your point about having – getting Rice back to where it was, if this could become a 2 to 3 bid league, that would be huge every single year. Not only just because of that, but for East Carolina's sake, it would be huge to have those opponents on your schedule from an RPI perspective once you get into the postseason time.
It definitely would, as now it seems like all of our RPI boosters come in February and early March. Well, that'll do it for our second segment here. On the other side, we will hit on a few of the Pirate opponents that are not in the American Athletic Conference, most notably the team they will open with in just 24 days, the Rider Broncs. This is Hoist the Colors on a Tuesday.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human, about creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
Fifth Street Hardware is the home of the $9 lunch special Tuesday through Fridays. $9 specials every day, including the famous Burger Day on Tuesdays, Flatbread Pizza Wednesday, the famous Fifth Street Hardware Reuben on Thursday, and fried fish or shrimp on Friday. Plus trivia on Wednesday nights and live music every Thursday nights. And the Prime Rib Brunch Buffet has returned on Sundays. You heard that right. The Brunch Buffet with all the great items, including prime rib. Fifth Street Hardware in downtown Greenville.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's Cut in Color. And let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Everything you need to know in the world of ECU athletics. This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Welcome back into our show. It's been a very Pirate baseball-centric show as we did have Pirate Baseball Media Day yesterday. Now we're going to get into the opponents that are out of conference, most notably Riders. We are 24 days out from February 16th and opening day in college baseball. The Bronx will be here at 4 p.m., so be sure to ask your boss if you can get off about 3:30 to make it over for first pitch of East Carolina.
And if you can't,
Rider.
I know of a very good radio station you can listen to your game on with a really good play-by-play guy.
Yes, and if you cannot make it over in time, be sure to check out Scooter right here on 94.3 The Game with Dr. Coach Gary Overton, the winningest coach of all time in Pirate baseball history.
It's good to see Coach O yesterday at Media Day. Haven't
I know.
seen him in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Coach O since like November.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I wasn't able to go over there for football games. Halftime I'm stuck here producing basketball. I never see Coach O anymore.
It's always a joy to see the honorable Dr. Gary Overton.
It is. It definitely is. Tell you, my friends who've moved away from Greenville, I think the thing they miss about Greenville the most is Coach O.
Absolutely.
Well, we're starting with the Rider Bronx, and I know up front that doesn't sound like the sexiest opponent. Rider last year had 3 Quad 1 victories. They beat the Oklahoma Sooners in the regular season. They beat the Duke Blue Devils in the regular season, and then beat the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina in the first game of the Conway Regional. They ended up losing to Duke 2-1 in the second game before being eliminated by Coastal on Sunday afternoon. But this team, I think, is definitely one of the better mid-majors last year. I expect them to still be pretty good this year, Scooter. And, this is one of those things. Obviously, you want to sweep every series, but if you do go 2-1 in this one, I don't think this is panic mode for East Carolina, as this is a very good Bronx baseball team.
Yeah, not at all. And, we did some light. I haven't really looked in the Rider a ton yet, but just off of the surface, they went 36-21 last year, hit 265 as a team. So, not terrible numbers at all. Pitching-wise, they had a 4.39 ERA, but the biggest thing, glancing over them, they're returning 3 of their top 4 hitters from last year, and that was already a good team last year, as you said, coming into the postseason. I think their record was even, if I'm not mistaken, with Quad 1 with Duke. And so this is a team that knows how to win. Their head coach, I think, has been there for almost 20 years now. And so this is one of those, smaller programs that knows how to win, and they will fully expect to come into Greenville in a couple weeks and beat East Carolina.
Yeah, and, the one thing, obviously the portal is a thing in college baseball. But due to less NIL being in baseball and football, when you do have a coach who's been there for 20 years and you are winning, it's slightly easier for a team like Rider to maintain their players as opposed to, maybe say a basketball team that was up and coming and their guys might get poached by a bigger program. Obviously, they're going to lose some, but we talk about it with East Carolina and the culture that Cliff Godwin has built. And when they've had a coach for 20 years and they've been as successful as they have, there's a certain culture there up in wherever they are in New Jersey. I'm not sure the name of the town. I know I looked it up earlier and I've already forgotten. Sorry about that. But up there in frigid, cold New Jersey, hey, you got to have some kind of culture to go out there and take BP when it's 15 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And, culture is such a big thing these days, and we talked about it earlier. But yes, for a program like Rider, you have to have something like culture to keep getting players, essentially. And especially some of those northern schools, the academic standards are a little bit higher than the majority of places too. And so you have to find that right player. You have to find the one that fits your program from a player mentality. You have to find one that fits your academic side as well. And, for them to come out, win, 36 games and compete against programs like Duke, especially late in the year is when they played Duke as well, which is when Duke started playing better down the stretch. And so this is, like I said, this is a program that Pirate fans certainly going to have to watch on opening weekend.
Rider has been to 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournaments, making an appearance in 2021 as 2023, and they have actually been to Omaha back in 1967. They made their sole trip to Omaha. Well, that'll do it for our third segment here on the Bronx. When we come back, we will wrap up Hoist the Colors on a Tuesday.
Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
When a place is as special as this, you don't want to change a thing. You simply want to enjoy it, just as it is. That was our inspiration behind Bow Coast West, our newest community in Beaufort, North Carolina. Embrace all that we love about this very special place and make it easy for families to enjoy all that this coastal lifestyle has to offer. Be inspired. Bow Coast West.
Hey, grab me one too.
Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport. Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof.
This is ECU head football coach Mike Houston, and you're listening to Hoist the Colors on 94.3 The Game.
Coach Houston bringing us back in here, as it's been a baseball-centric show, but we're all still optimistic for the upcoming football season as well. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, Igo should be back tomorrow. That is the plan as of now, as he has been feeling a little under the weather the last 2 days. He wasn't able to be in yesterday or today. So thanks to Igo for allowing Scooter and I to fill in. It's been a lot of fun working with you, Scooter, over these last couple days. And I hate that Igo's sick, but maybe we can, I don't know, do some more stuff together.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to be back here pushing the buttons and hanging out with you the past couple days. It was a long day yesterday with Media Day. We had Hoist the Colors in the morning, and we had Coach's Show last night as well. But, hey, that's the business of radio. That's why we get into it.
That's true. I think you were here probably here or at the baseball stadium yesterday from, about 8:30 until about 7:15?
I think I got here at 9 yesterday, and then left about 7:15 last night. Yep.
And there was no hour-long lunch break in the middle of that, so Scooter was grinding yesterday.
That's right.
As he was eating and working at the same time as we all were.
I'm a big grinder in the radio world.
You are a big grinder in the radio world. Hey, get used to it, because Pirate Baseball's right around the corner, and you know what that means? Rain.
Be quiet.
Hey, I got to sit through. I'd rather sit at the ballpark and watch it rain than sit in the studio.
As long as it doesn't rain at UTSA, I am okay, because I will be sitting outside, apparently, on that trip in the bleachers So, and I really don't want to be responsible for like $5,000 worth of radio equipment if it rains. So please, rain gods, do not rain in San Antonio, Texas when we are there.
I thought there was another place you were supposed to be outside.
I've heard FAU might be outside, but
That's
I
not
don't know
good.
that for sure.
You know, the time of year that it rains in Florida is if it's between January 1st and December the 31st, it's the rainy season in Florida.
Right.
So they need to have y'all's butts inside or that equipment's going to get ruined.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Maybe it won't rain.
I don't think I've ever been to Florida and not had rain. I mean, unless I was like going on a cruise and I like got down there and then we, you know, like spent one night and left. But like first 2 Daytona 500s I went to rained. I think the last one it still rained. The third one I went to it still rained some. It didn't rain out the race. Been to Disney, rained. Visit friends in Miami, rained. It always rains.
Always rains.
Something about that peninsula. You got water on both sides of you. Wow, that's loud.
That is loud.
That's
I apologize.
Is it over modulating? No, you're good. But, yep, so that'll about do it for our show. That music that's started out very loud and now is at a good volume is in my ear, letting me know that it is time to wrap it up. So tune back in tomorrow as, again, Igo should be back. We want to thank all of our listeners tuning in. Thanks to Igo for letting Scooter and I fill in. Thanks to you for pushing all the buttons, turning the knobs. Scott, I'm Philip Pilkington. Have a great rest of your afternoon, Pirate.
This has been Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo. Tune in weekdays at noon for all things ECU sports. Get a recap of the show at 943thegame.com, on Twitter, Facebook, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We're back tomorrow with more of Hoist the Colors on 943 The Game.
Greenville Toyota's Winter Wrap-Up Event. Wrap up a great deal on over 100 pre-owned vehicles, starting under $15,000. We have all makes and models, including luxury. Plus, wrap up a huge warranty and no-charge maintenance. Hurry into Greenville Toyota.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone.